Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is such a pleasure for me to announce to you my arrival of the fifth episode of the new series of BSP Leadership Podcast. So, today, in this fifth episode, we are going to be talking about a subject that is never talked about. Because my guest today is somebody who doesn't believe in going on the same path that everyone is going. He likes to create new paths and makes people follow them. Before I come to tell you who that guest is, let me just tell you a little bit about this subject. So, we are talking about a leadership nomadic mindset. Now, what is a nomadic mindset? I can't tell you. The expert will tell you. So, today, for this fifth episode, we have with us, and let me introduce this gentleman to you with a little applause. And let's have none other than Kevin Cottam. Kevin, before I ask you to introduce yourself a little more than what I'm going to say, let me tell you a little about him. For over 4 decades, Kevin has courageously embraced the roads less traveled. I'll say not less traveled, never traveled. From choreographing world and Olympic figure skating, I've known Kevin for quite some time, but I didn't know this part till this morning. And multi-million dollar touring productions worldwide, his influence knows no bound. As the author of The Nomadic Mindset, Never Settle for Too Long, Kevin seamlessly merges nomadic wisdom from Mongolia, Kenya, and Morocco with contemporary leadership principles. His innovative and transformative nomadic leadership compass, five frameworks and models, infuse the nomadic leadership journey experience solution has been empowered individuals, senior leadership teams, and giants like Novartis, OCBC, Haribo, and Club Media, including 20 years coaching leaders across EU institutions and agencies to thrive amidst uncertainty and change. So, Kevin's presence is mesmerizing, inspiring, and engaging, awakening and igniting audiences. His mission is clear: to inspire and guide others on their own nomadic journey so that they too can be fearless pioneers of experiencing the adventure of a lifetime. I did a very mild version of it and I said exploring the unknown. But I think what Kevin is going to tell us something much beyond that, an amplified version. So, welcome, Kevin, and we are really looking forward to this session. Ladies and gentlemen, no rehearsals, no nothing. We are going absolutely spontaneous because that is where we find the greatest conversations happen. So, over to you, Kevin. Welcome for
Thank,
this podcast and thank you for accepting it without batting an eyelid.
well, thanks so much, Sushil. It's really wonderful to be here with you and your community. And I'm just really excited to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. And I believe is a real superpower. And it's one of those things that the nomadic mindset is, it's not just about travel. So I want to make that very clear right now. That's the myth, to dispel the myth that when I say the nomadic mindset, it does not necessarily mean travel. It can also include, but it's not that so much. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. And one of the things that I think that I left out of all of that is that some people find really strange, and that is is that I used to dance at the Moulin Rouge, and I would do can twice a night, and into the wee hours of the night, and that was back in the dark ages when I was able to kick my legs up much higher than I can now. So it was a very exciting time to be living in Pigalle in Paris with all the crazies and it was a very interesting period of time. So yeah, so I lived a pretty wild life at the same time as a pretty staid life at times, and also I have to say that it's it's been a very interesting life of so many different dimensions and colors and tempos, and I really believe that that is how we are here put on this work in this lifetime, is to experience and experience and experience, and everyone is every day experiencing. Some of the I think many people that I come across say, "Oh, I have such a boring life. You have such an exciting life." And I would say, sometimes it's very boring what I'm doing. It's very repetitive. However, I see it as part of the journey, and the journey is always the up and down, and it's like a mountain and valleys, and we need to go up the mountain to go down the valley, and we need to go, and there's never a straight line going up the mountain and down the mountain and then into the valleys. If you'll notice that most valleys, they're never straight lines, the paths. So because that's the hardest way to go up and down, is a straight line. You need to weave, bob and weave and wander, and that's really important. And that's in life, is to it's never really a straight line. And I think that one of the misconceptions of us as humans is, and what we're taught through culture and also school, that things are in a straight linear line, which is absolutely incorrect. I think that you would probably agree, every one of you here in the community. And I'm sure, I mean, for yourself, Sushil, I mean, it's never been a straight line for you, right? And also in the military, it's never really truly a straight line, right? Um, you need to be able to find different passages, different pathways, different opportunities, adapt very fast, right? And so that's very nomadic.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you because life takes a real zigzag path. You may go like to go in a straight line. You know that linear line, but as you walk towards it, you're drifted left and right and thrown off that path many times. But if
Yeah.
you know that path well, then you do manage to come back to that direction. Otherwise, you may lose direction completely.
Mm.
So that was very fascinating. I think you started with exciting us. But before we get to that leadership part, let's begin with your own journey. So I
Sure.
would like to ask you, and I think everyone would be interested in knowing that, what first fascinated you about studying nomadic cultures, and how did that become such an important part of your work?
Mm. Thanks, Sushil. It all came about by happenstance. It just appeared. Um, I had a mentor, Frederick Herron, and a very wonderful professional speaker and the creativity explorer. Anyway, I was looking for a subject to speak upon, and I called myself a global nomad. And so he got very interested in understanding what is a global nomad, and he started to look it up. What is the meaning of nomad? And we had a 1 hour inner theme session of where all of a sudden what came out of it was this incredible exploration of what the book would be, is the nomadic mindset, never settle for too long, and then the research that needed to come from it. And he said, I asked him, I said, well, I've never really done research, so how do I do it? What do I do? He said, well, you need to research over 100 different leaders, because it's a leadership book in different sectors, different countries, different ages, all sorts of the dimensions. And he also said, you need to go and live with 3 different nomadic cultures in the world. And I went, oh. And then I thought, how am I going to do that? And I asked him, I said, can I do it just by research on Google or in the library? And he said, no, you need stories, stories, stories. You need to walk with people. You need to eat with them. You need to watch them. You need to observe. You need to listen. And this is exactly what leadership is being able to wander with the people, wander in the nature, wander because you need to stand next to them. You need to follow them. You need to be in front of them. You need to be in a circle with them. All of these dimensions are what brings leadership. So that's how it all sort of came about. And our we went to actually Frederick came to Mongolia with me, which was the first stop, which was so fascinating to go with him, right? So, because he's so energetic in itself, and he was launching his ideas book in Mongolia. And so I was able to arrange that we all went, and then we went on, and his part of the journey was first, and then it was my journey to discover a variety of different aspects of the nomadic life with the Mongolian nomads in the steppes, and it was really fascinating to do. But that's how it all began. And then after that, then I went um, to Kenya with the Maasai, and then also I went to Morocco with the and in the southern Sahara and southern Morocco with the Berbers, Tashmites, and a variety of other tribes that were there. And each time was fascinating. And I would say, you know, doing research like this takes a lot of energy. It takes an awful lot of thinking. It takes a lot of
Money.
courage and money to do because it's not a simple research, right? So, but I have to say that I was incredibly lucky because somehow it's not easy to get in with nomadic tribes because there's a lot of you have to build trust, and you also have to know somebody perhaps that's going to help you to get in, and because there's always that, you know, who is this white person coming into our communities, what does he want, you know? So there's a lot of different stories in that sense. But I was incredibly lucky, and so when I say lucky is that I for Kenya, I had a client, a coaching client, and after one of our sessions, I said, I need to ask you a question. And I would like to do some research with the Maasai because of the book that I want to write. And she says, oh, I can help you because I've done a lot of work with the Maasai. So, yeah, no problem. And I was like blown away. And I thought, wow, that was easy. And then I had another client in Morocco. And at one point, I said to him, I said, you know, I'm planning to do this research. And I said the same story again that I did. And he said, oh, I can help you because I know an incredible French anthropologist. His specialty is Berber culture, and he will help you considerably. And I went, and so that was amazing. And I got, you know, he helped in the whole design of the journey became much easier. And and the same happened when I also 2 years later, when I was in Namibia, I went to spend a bit of time with the Bushmen of the Kalahari and also the Himba. And that was also designed by a friend that I knew as well. So all of these things just became, yes, this has to happen. You know, I believe in that. When all of the ducks fall into the row, you know, it's like something is there. So that's why I'm here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, you said something about building trust. And I find that when it comes to leadership, the trust factor comes everywhere. Whatever you're doing, whether you're doing your marketing, whether you're doing your research, whether you are doing anything about your subject, I think the first step is to build trust. And that's true for leadership in every aspect. When I started talking to you, Kevin, I thought that this is going to be a very new subject I know nothing about. But as you are unfolding it, I find a lot of similarities. So I just want to probably tell some of my friends listening to me and also to you. I don't know whether I shared this with you, Kevin, that I had a long journey ahead of me. I had spent 34 years in the army. I had another five to go. And the way my career was going, it was almost sure that I would get promoted to the highest rank I could have done, which is only two ranks away. But I fell in love with children when I was asked to be the chairman of the army school. And that made me, I just said to myself, enough is enough. I've done enough for the nation through the army. Let me do something for the nation by building its youth. Because I fell in love with children of the school when I was the chairman. And I got a TEDx talk on that, of how I found my purpose at the age of 52. Now,
Fantastic.
what I want to say is, when I wanted to come out, everyone who knows me, from my wife to my parents to my friends to anyone, they said, "How stupid you are. You have spent 34 years, people do that to reach a stage, and we are just at the peak. You want to come out and do something else, and you have no idea about business, and you want to get into business." And I won't listen to anyone, because when something hits you like that, when there's passion, no logic works. So I said, no, I am going to leave the army and I am going to do something for children. So I have a very close friend, a mentor, senior mentor from the army. And when I asked him, he says, "You are being stupid. Who will come to your..." I said, "I want to start a school of my own." He says, people say, who's this brigadier to run a school? What is great about your school? He really grilled me. And ultimately, I decided school may not be possible, but I had 50 acres of land, which four cousins, we co-owned it. And because land was very expensive in Delhi, we went there. Now, everything I did was nothing I knew. I didn't know the area we were going to. I didn't know the type of business I'm going to do. All I knew was I'm going to empower young people to live a more purposeful life.
Mm,
And that didn't change. That was like a direction. It was like what I say, a lighthouse. That, you know, that is not going to change. Everything else can change.
mm.
So I went into that direction. And not taking the story too long, what I'm saying is that what I kept saying, I'm exploring the unknown. Now, when you talk about research, every time I had a client, a corporate client, we started with children. That was not enough to keep our finances there. So we started doing corporate training. And because I had leadership experience for 38 years in the army, I thought I could teach leadership better than anyone else could. So I
Mm,
got into. I would go to a company, visit them, meet people, get to know what their problems are, not what HR told me, not what the CEO told me, but what randomly people I would meet. I would sit
mm.
with them with lunch and talk at lunch and get to know through very candid gossip, to get to know what they're really feeling. Recently, I've got a training program next week, and this is the first time in my life I'm going to be training people who are down to the last level, the ground workers who work in
Nice.
villages with farmers.
Wow. Great.
And I spent 6 days traveling 2,000 kilometers to study the farmers who are going, the people who live in villages, and pass on their agricultural skills to the farmers. And they are coming, 40 of them. None of them speak English. They speak the native language, but they understand Hindi. And I'm going to have a communication distance, but still I have interacted with them. They understand what I'm saying. So this is exactly what I'm realizing, that even I'm on that nomadic path to some extent.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
that is making me very happy, and it's also giving me an idea that next time I need to go a little more deep into the nomadic world. I'm going to make a request to you to come and join me in a training like that, where you bring in this aspect when we do some good leadership programs.
Happy to do so. Happy to do so. So,
So
what you were
now,
talking about was really interesting. And then let me just add on to that, though. So, um, I believe in connecting the dots. And one of the things that I learned with my nomadic research was is they talked a lot about connecting the dots backwards and connecting dots forwards. And so it was a very important thing. And so many throughout my life, I had moved around an awful lot physically. I moved to Paris. I moved to New York, I moved to study, I moved to Ottawa, Toronto. I lived in over 15 major cities. And people kept on saying, why don't you just stay put? Why don't you stay put? You're successful at what you do. Don't move on. Just keep doing the same thing. And I could never understand somehow what they meant by that, because no matter where I went, I was still successful in the work that I was doing. So I don't get it, what they're talking about staying put. And so then they kept on saying the following: you're running away. You're running away. You're running away. And I kept on going, I don't know if I'm running away. So anyway, what happened is when I was sitting in a yurt in Mongolia and I was having chat with this 82-year-old father, the master, he was a great guy, and then his son was there and his son's wife. And the stories that went by, and all of a sudden I had this flash of the connecting my dots backwards. And I realized that I was not running away, I was running towards. And I was running towards my purpose, my passions. I was running towards knowledge. I was running to to inspire and to grow. That's what I was running towards. And so, these are choices that we make, and everybody makes them in different ways. But most people, because they won't do that type of exploration in their lives because of the stigma, family wise, perhaps, or also culturally, whatever happens, and also because they're locked into a profession that maybe they don't even really want to do, but they're being forced into a profession because. So I really truly believe that this is very important to understand where you're moving towards. And sometimes it takes you a long time to understand that. And that's okay. And so I think that, that's important. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, so if you don't mind.
No, that's very good. That's very valuable. And I just love this thing: dots forward and dots backwards. That's beautiful. Vidhu, can you put that in the that comment also on the screen? Dots backwards and dots forward. Wonderful. So now I wanted to ask you that you've been into this journey, and I sometimes wonder, the path that you took was not easy, as you said also. Involves time more than anything else: time, money, energy, traveling, and then, of course, also banking on luck when you are lucky to get five people like you did from your clients to take it forward. But then luck doesn't happen till you do something about it yourself first. So I would like to ask you, where do you get these ideas from, and how do you come to these areas of research?
Um, so I I believe that it comes from an inspiration. It comes from spiritual thinking. I think it comes from intuition. It comes from looking at the different signs around you and registering. And it's also about the awareness that are all around us. We have many, many different ideas and thoughts, and they are everywhere. However, most of us are blind, and most of us are not feeling. We've desensitized ourselves in this particular lives that we have today in big cities, and all the dynamics of uncertainty and economics and war and all sorts of things. But I do believe that everywhere is a chance for creativity, and everything is a chance of a speck of a spot of an idea. And that comes from noticing, it comes from observing. And I learned more about that with when I was in with the Maasai warrior in Kenya. And so I asked him, and it had nothing to do with this part of the question, but it actually is related to this question. And I asked him, well, how do you kill a lion? And he said, well, I've killed two lions because I had to do that on my coming of age. And so I will share with you. First of all, when you come across a lion, you need to stand very still. Stillness is extremely important. You need to be still inside, you need to be still outside, you need to connect to your breath. You need to listen to the breath and also listen and feel the breath of the lion. You need to watch it. You need to observe the lion, and you need to observe 360 degrees around you without moving. You need to sense all of that. That's your intuition. You need to be curious. What is happening to the lion? What's happening around you? What is happening to the wind? You need to listen deeply to the inside and outside. So, but he said, most of all, you cannot rely on your cognitive thinking because it is too slow. And I said, really? He said, no, you have to listen very much to your gut. You need to, your intuition. And what I'm talking about here as well is those senses, what he's talking about, the incredible senses that we have that, you know, most people I watch walking down the street here in Singapore, for example, have no clue of their senses. They've got their phone in there and they don't know who's around them. They can't even feel you come up next to them, behind them, and you can't. They don't feel that anybody's anywhere near them, you or them, and you know there is this sense, and that's why I take people to the nature and take nature, like forest bathing, is I take people to nature so that they can start to sense again, so that they can start to see. And the only exercise in forest bathing is to be quiet, to walk slowly, to be mindful, and to see, look at nature, look at the roots, look at the leaves, look at the flowers, look at the bark, look at the tree, how big it is, you know, and just watch the immensity of and marvel at the creativity of nature. Nature is so creative. I mean, you look at an orchid, for example, how do they get the colors exactly the same and the design is exactly the same of each species, each type of orchid? And I'm going, how does that happen? You know, and it's incredible. Even I, you know, this is very strange, I must admit, for most of it. I started to study to go to medicine, and I took a course called histology. And this was back in the dark ages when I was going to do that. And then I stopped and I said, no, I don't want to do medicine. But anyway, I loved histology. And I would go into the labs, and it's about histology, studying of cells and tissues. And so they had this atlas of all the tissues of your body, and of course the dyes that they use dyes, and so you can see the different ones. And I kept looking at these and I'm going, this is so creative. It's amazing what's inside of us, the creativity. And if you were to color this is like artistry. You can make fabric, you can make wallpaper, you can paint this, you can do all sorts of things. And that again is about seeing the immensity of the marvel of nature and also about humanity. So,
Absolutely. I mean, the way you've been telling us about this creativity, and yes, it's there everywhere. Very nice. Well, I really like this part. Kevin, when you have immersed yourself so much in so many of these cultures, tell me what something striking that you found which is different in this creativity in different cultures that no book, no video, nothing else can teach you that till you really get down to ground level and get into that mode of nomadic mindset.
yeah, I mean, when you spend time with nomadic cultures, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, they're not very smart, they're not very clever, they don't have university degrees, they don't need any possessions. I mean, really, why don't you have possessions? And they think that they're dirty or whichever. There's an incredible sense of incredible knowledge and history which is within them, and they pass it on ongoingly to the community, to the new ones, to creating new leaders, because they believe that a leader's main job is to create new leaders. That's the main thing for leaders is to do. And I would watch this, how I would see the young children, for example, 5 and 6 years old herding the cattle. And I thought, and protecting the cattle. And I thought, how is that? And I would see the older boys training them, and I would see the elders training them. And I could see this passage of learning, growth, history, possibility. And this fascinated me because what I see in particularly in organizations, this can happen, but often it is not happening in this way that is consciously about truly developing. And now, with all the mentorship which is in organizations, this really helps considerably. And I think that is fantastic. However, still, there's a lot of power holding, power basing from the top down, and people become then very rigid into their positions, and their roles. But I, one of the other things that I found fascinating was how they developed trust. And when I was in, well, all the places actually, it's very similar. I was sitting in the Southern Sahara in a tent. Well, it was a little home, a one room home, and I was with my guide, my driver, and my photographer. And we were invited in by the master of the house. And in Morocco, if you know, the tea ceremony is extremely important. And so they have 3 cups of Moroccan tea. And so they make it very strong with incredible amount of sugar. So it's like a sugar high and a constant having these. And so what they do is the master of the house is the master tea maker, and he just makes the tea, and they do this dance of the tea pot and their little teapots and little shot glasses. Anyway, I was sitting there while my guide was talking to him in Arabic, and they were talking, 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 talking. Then after the 3rd cup of tea, he said to me, "You can now ask your questions." And I thought, why now after the 3rd cup of tea? And so he started to ask me, I started to ask him questions. And then he asked me one question, which I hadn't been asked before. And he said, "What makes us similar?" And I was like blown away. Not different, similar. And I learned later that he was talking about my trip with the Maasai, Mongolia, because my guide had already laid the land. He had created the land so that I could be trusted. And that was what was happening in that conversation over the 3 cups of tea. And that, they say, the longer you have tea, the more information that you gather, the more rapport that you develop, the more trust that is built or not. And so I found this fascinating as a very simple way over tea and conversation. Anyway, what happened was I said, "It's your humanity. That is what is so similar." Because he knew they were all different in the sense that different religion, different food, different topography, different, all sorts of things, different languages. He knew that because he found that out. But it was like for me to say what is similar, it was like he was zooming into some sort of telepathic area that they know each other, right? So we're all interconnected, I thought, after all this. We forget that we're interconnected. We have similarities of so many basic things of values and also ways of being. And even in organizations, there's incredible similarity, but we constantly talk about differences. And that doesn't get us anywhere because we lose the place of what is the vision, how do we align to the vision, and how do we move towards that with the values, consciousness of community, or as they will say, common unity.
Very good. I'm fascinated with this. But this is real. This is real. This is not. You see, again, that is the difference. It's not books. It is not what you have heard of, and many people have read. But when you have gone and experienced it, and this 3 cups tea, I kept wondering till you came with the answer. Why 3 cups of tea? Very, very powerful. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we are having this conversation.
Thank you.
Now,
Me
you
too.
said to me some time back that you're going to be going to Kyrgyzstan for more research.
Yes.
And actually, I think many people, and so am I, would actually be curious to know how do you do your research? Like you said a couple of things which I've understood, but I would like to go a little deeper into understanding what do you look for in these research, and how do you discover insights that eventually become leadership lessons, which means now you talked about the 3 cup conversation. But how does that get related to a leadership conversation or a leadership mindset? That is something I would love to know.
Sure, sure. Yes, I'm going to Kyrgyzstan. I'm very excited about it. And um, one of the things that when you do research and when you've done something that you need to continue because you need to stay relevant. You need to still start looking at different aspects of what could leadership be, different avenues to get into leadership. So what I'm doing is I'm going to see the World Nomadic Games. Now that is bizarre for most people because these are very old games. And some of these games are like, you're on horseback and you're doing archery. You're on horseback and you're doing, battling it out with wrestling. You are, um, they have a thinking game. So that's fascinating to me, and there's so many different games that they have. When they're all to do with in nature, they're all to do with animals. There's usually animals involved in these. And because that's how most of these people are living, it's about their animals and there's transportation. So, um, so how do I do this? As a In creativeness, whenever I get a project, all of a sudden something triggers in me. It's like the senses start to open up. I start to see things differently. I start to hear things differently. I start to question colors. I start to look at what are the threads here. What are the discerning negativities? What are I look at nature, I look at the elements, I look at all sorts of things that might be giving me the information. And then I also have to verify sort of, how am I going to do it? Am I going to do it with my camera, with my phone? And how am I going to do interviews? And then also, who can I interview? How can I set this all up? But a lot of it will be on the spot, actually, and uh, very, very much spontaneous in many ways, because most of these people won't speak English. So it'll be very interesting. I'll have to put through AI and get translation for a lot of this, right? But I think that this will be fascinating to do. And then I'm looking at leadership through the eyes of sports, and because I come from sports, elite sport, this fascinates me as well because this is not in the ordinary, but what can we learn about that? What can we learn about the behaviors? What can we learn about all of these strengths, that the courage that it takes? All of these are elements which are leadership elements, right? Is that how do they do it? Why do they do it? Why do they do these old sports still? And finding out what really moves them. And that, I think, is the important part, is the story. It's all about story. And that is what is rich. And then for that, then I start to compile, well, what are the data, and then how can I put this either into prose or a book or add it to, social media? How can I do all of that? And I pretty much do it very, very guerrilla, as they say, and that is just winging it. And I think that the worst part is being perfect in it, because that's not how that world works. It's not perfection. It is about experience and just get it out there. So,
Very good, very good. So I also do some research, but I don't travel. I just sit on my laptop and do some research. And that is what everyone does. So, in my research, I found from your website, from many other resources, that you have some thought which fascinated me. And that says, look for, and let me put it on the screen as well. Uh, Look for what doesn't fit into the puzzle.
Into the picture.
Into the picture, sorry, into the picture. Look for what doesn't fit in the picture. I'm curious to know more about this. How do you do that, and what does it mean actually?
Okay, so I have to tell it through a story because that's how it came, from a story. And so when I was in Kenya, I went on a safari, and so my guide and my well, two guides really, and they took me off in their their vehicle, which is a big vehicle for safaris, and so we would travel around and we would stop every so often, and he would say, "Overlook over there, and you'll see behind those bush an emu or some animal, a zebra, whichever." And I would say, "Over where?" And he would point, "Over there." And then I would look over his finger and I go, "Over there." Then they would give me binoculars, and that was even worse because what was I looking at? I have no idea. These guys have the most long distance sight I've ever met. They can see for kilometers, it feels like, and they sense everything. So, so I thought, okay, it's over there somewhere. And then I didn't really know a lot of the time. Sometimes I was correct and sometimes I was not, and whatever. So I got frustrated. Anyway, then a couple of years later, I went to Namibia. And so we were going on a little safari in Etosha Park with my guide saying, stopping and going, "Look over there behind those bushes. You will see a family of springboks." And I'm going, "Oh no, here we go again. Look over there." And so there was a lot of bushes, and I couldn't really see again. So I said, "Listen, I don't really see. What are you seeing that I am unable to see?" And he said, "I look for what doesn't fit in the picture." And I went, "Whoa, I look for what doesn't fit in the picture." Because with my eyes, I'm looking for what my perspective is. I'm looking at what is in my picture, in my brain, of what is possible or what is there. But there is more behind that we don't see. So what it's saying is that, and what I believe it's saying is that if you look for the picture from your own perspective and don't let go of that perspective, you will not see the fullness of possibility, opportunity, ideas, everything. And so you will stop your perspective growing. So you look for what doesn't fit and then you find what it is.
Wow, that's fascinating. It is just the other way around of what Mariana Pascal talks about, the see it from the lens of the director. When she says, don't look at the people acting, you look at them through the lens of the camera because that is what the audience is going to see. So there you're looking for what is in the frame and you're looking for something which is out of the frame. That's a very interesting thing. I think I'm going to give a little more thought to this to bring it to context. Beautiful. So
Yeah.
now I would now like to get across to uh, asking you that if you were to give to the audience one message, that what could they do to get into this nomadic mindset, what would it be?
Okay. So, Sheil, if you don't mind, I will share what is the nomadic mindset and then how to get into it.
Oh
So,
yes,
what I
maybe
think,
I should have asked you that question first. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
no worries. It's all cool. I love to talk, as you can hear. So, anyway, you know what I was talking about? Look for what doesn't fit in the picture, and I was talking about perspective. So here it is again: is that when I was in Mongolia, I was with Frederick, and we were, he was already having a conversation with this woman by the name of Batgirl Bat, who was the head of the branding council of Mongolia. And before that, I had always thought the nomadic, what meant nomadic, was the dictionary version, was a group of people or a tribe moving from place to place without any fixed home for looking for the next pasture. And so I asked her, what is the true meaning of nomad? And she said to me in her deep and sultry voice and these big shining eyes and this deep, this cheekbones that went from side to side and smile that was huge. She said, it's not what you think it is. I went, oh. So I leaned in a bit further and she said, it's the movement of the mind. The movement of the mind, the movement of the mind. And all of a sudden, from that moment, it was like fireworks went off inside of me. I thought, I have found the essence of what is the nomadic mindset. It is the movement of the mind. And and neuroscience says we have three minds: the mind, the heart, the head, the heart, and the gut. So if we think about this and extrapolate that and the perspective of what the word nomad means, it's very different feeling. And so when people say to me, I must have a nomadic mindset, I love to travel, I said, not necessarily. You may like to travel, it depends on how you like to travel. But it can be part of it. But it is the movement of the mind. Now, what does that mean in the nomadic mindset? That means a mind that is able to be adaptable, is flexible, is free, is without borders. It is one that sees possibilities, opportunities, risks, threats everywhere. It doesn't move in a straight line, it moves around. It finds its way. And if there is a way that doesn't work, it goes in another direction. And that is what happens. But it isn't always strategic. If you think of nomads, they're always strategic because the safety of the community is the most important part of their lives. And that also includes their animals, because the animals, for pastoralists, is their currency. That's how they survive, they live. But the nomadic mindset, when I share this with people, it's like an explosion that goes off in some of them. And they said, I have had in sessions, whichever online speeches and whichever, people say, you've given me a superpower. You've just given me freedom. And I said, it's always been there. You just have not allowed it. And I'm just giving you a way forward to allow yourself to have that freedom. And that is what we do in coaching, right? And coaching is really about giving that freedom, is that nomad, is allowing yourself to go nomadic in a session, wandering, finding solutions. And people don't realize they're on a direction to one thing, but they come out with, wow, I've achieved something more than I ever thought that I would go into. So the nomadic mindset is incredibly valuable, especially now. Why? Especially now, because we're in this world of uncertainty, which, for nomads, they say uncertainty. It's like, what's the big deal? Everything's been uncertain since the beginning of time. So why now? What's different now? They say to me, when I would ask first world questions, how do you deal with change? Well, it's a big leadership thing, right? And organizational. How do you deal with change? And they would again look at me like, turn their head, whichever, and stare at me. And then all of a sudden they'd say, why are you asking? Everything is always in change. So why bother to think about what's going on and worry about it? Then they would say to me, well, Westerners and other people, you have such congested minds because you're stressing about all these things. We don't stress about this. We see it, we watch nature, we go with it, we flow with it. And of course, you think, okay, they have a very simple life, have a complex life. What's true? They have complexity too. They have to survive. But the nomadic mindset is something that will give you freedom.
Beautiful. I'm really, really happy to hear all that. So now I'd like to come towards the end, and I would like to ask you, Kevin, if I would look at the three things that you would like people to take away as the gist of your talk. If there were three things they must remember about nomadic mindset, what would they be?
One is that I have not told the story about it, but anyway, I will share with you, and that is what a young university student said to me in Mongolia. She said, "Nomads think vastly, act narrowly." So they think vastly when they come out of the yurt and they see the vastness. They look at the possibilities. They use the threats. They look to see, is it time to move on, whatever it is, and then they make a decision and narrow in. So they go wide and narrow in, wide and then zoom in. So thinking vastly and acting narrowly is extremely important, because I would say that most of my coaching clients and most of us that start the day off, we're in a narrow point of view. If you meditate, then you start from a wider perspective, because that allows you to, if you go into nature early, you start to see wider as opposed to narrow. So that's one, think vastly, act narrowly. Uh, I believe that it is also about the movement of the mind is really, really important for everyone to remember, that we are never not moving. Movement is in like a symphony, and that's how symphonies are developed in different movements. And they have pauses, they have speed up, they have slow down, they have a variety of tempos, colors, textures, tones. That is the movement of the mind and the movement of who you are inside of you. So the movement of the mind. So think vastly, act narrowly, movement of the mind. And then I would like to just come back again to another one, which is related to movement, and that is what I was told by a Messiah warrior, is that we are migrating. Where we were is not where we are. We are evolving. And that is an important thing, I think, for all of us to realize we're not stuck, is that we are migrating on an ongoing basis. It just takes courage, curiosity, listening, observation, and the will, and trusting yourself. I think that is the most important thing, is trust.
Wonderful. That's so good. That's so good. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, if people want to know more about this,
Hmm.
how do you think they could contact you? Can you just share some of your credentials and tell us uh, how any audience here, whether watching
Sure.
now or watch later, would be able to connect with you so that they could
Yeah,
learn about this mindset?
sure. I mean, first of all, if you're on LinkedIn, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name and start following me, and also um, find out about my newsletter, and you can have that. And also just follow. Every Monday, I give what's called the Nomadic Weekly Bite, which is an inspirational quote, and every week, and that's free to you. There's also, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is the Nomadic Mindset, and you also can look it up from my name as well. There's a lot of video, and that's going to change, over the next half year, is because I want to start increasing that. And so join my YouTube channel. That would be great. And the last one is you can see my website. At the moment, it's under reconstruction, because it needs to move. It needs to go into another place. So it's called the nomadicmindset.com. And those are three ways that you're more than welcome to connect with me. I also have on Facebook. I'm not that active on Facebook, I have to say. So, and that's more of a personal family space for me. But that's how you can learn. And also my book, of course, you can get online if you're interested, which is called The Nomadic Mindset, Never Settle for Too Long. It's on Amazon. I believe there's another site, right, which is in an Indian site, which I'm not sure what it is. I can't remember the name, and it might be on there. I don't know. But
I will
you
check,
can.
and I'm going to order a copy right away. Immediately after this, I'm
Oh,
going to be
thank
ordering
you.
a copy, and then I'll give a link if it is on India Amazon. I'll give a link in the in this conversation so that anyone who wants can pick up. I've also shared, in fact, Vidita has just shared the link of the LinkedIn.com. So you can have a look at it, maybe take a screenshot. So it's there on the screen, his Kevin's LinkedIn profile.
Great. This is wonderful. It's been a fantastic time with you. And I'm so grateful for the questions, Sushil, and your community. And I can see there's a lot of people asking questions or even just repeating things. And I think it's beautiful. So thank you so much for the comments. And, for me, my mission is this is a movement. And I believe that we all need to have that movement. Let me tell you a story about it. A young Indian fellow who connected with me, and he said, "I want to follow you." And I said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "What you have given me is freedom by understanding this." He said, "My family has always told me I can't do certain things. I'm not allowed to because, it doesn't bring enough money or status or whichever." And he said that it's hampered me in my life. And he said, "You have given me freedom through the nomadic mindset. It's such a superpower." And I said, "Well, I'm really grateful that it's moved you, and I wish you well. And so this is something that helps a lot of people because a lot of people are stuck, afraid, in fear of a lot of different ways. But the nomadic mindset is whole, it's holistic. It's really interconnected with nature. It's interconnected with all of the universe. It is because that's what nomadic cultures, indigenous cultures are. They're interconnected, of which we all are as well. It's just that we've forgotten. So move to
Wonderful.
remember.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Outstanding. So, thank you very much, Kevin, for being with us today.
Thank
And
you.
we'll continue this conversation. I'm going to follow you straight away. You are on a mission and take me as your partner along. I will easily follow you on that untrodden path because I love to do that. And I've certainly got onto this idea of getting you over to join me in some of my trainings so that I can introduce the nomadic mindset in what we do in India. So that'll be great. So that's
That'd be great.
how collaborations work. That's how jointness. In the army, we used to always, other than the very common word of camaraderie, when it came to organizations meeting together, we used to say jointmanship. And
Ah,
that jointmanship happens everywhere if you are
joint
prepared to
venture.
trust people and then build that trust and take along doing something together. So that's what we could do.
I like that joint venture.
Yeah,
Mensch.
yeah.
And
And
that's
to all those who are listening or who listen to us later, please keep connected. We have already given you Kevin's credentials to some extent, and my team will put them on in the conversation so that you have them even when you come later. You must read his book. I'll give you some comments after I've read it. I'm good at buying books. I'm not so good at reading them. They keep like they keep lying on my shelf. And but what I do is when I buy a book, I go through the content page very well. So it goes into my memory. So when I'm looking for something, I know which book to pick up, and it's there. So then I just look at that chapter, pick up what I want, and move ahead. But to completely read a book requires a little more patience than what I have.
Wow, I'm actually very similar to that.
Okay. So thank you very much, Kevin, and very kind of you to have invested your time. I hope you got some good return on that investment of time.
Well, it's the investment also for me is just spending the time and seeing that there's people that are sharing comments and stuff like that. That's a huge investment because I think that you have to start. You can. It's not necessarily starting in the big venue, right, with hundreds and hundreds of people. you need to be also connected to the individual as well. So
So when I wrote my book, $1 million Second, the one you see in the gray color here on my screen, so $1 million Second, I said time investment strategies. So when I say the return that you get out of spending, out of investing time, is not in terms of money, it's in terms of your happiness, the value you got in that time that you invested. Was it worth it? Was it satisfying? Did it bring happiness and contentment? That is what the return is. So I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, all those who came and invested some time, some did partly, some were there throughout. Thank you very much. Thank you, Apeksha and Bhavna, for being there throughout. Thank you, Vidita, for your support. And thank you very much, Kevin, for being the host of the fifth episode. Thank you. Sorry, the guest of the
great
fifth,
book.
fifth
Thank you.
episode. Thank you.
Thank you.